How do you feel when you hear these stats? 42% of marketers do not use a marketing attribution tool. 71% of marketers believe optimizing the customer journey across multiple channels and interactions is crucial. This optimization, they say, can improve customer satisfaction and drive business growth. However, 50% of B2B marketers report limitations in their current analytic solutions. These reports are not providing them with the adequate visibility into what channels or campaigns work best. I have a feeling that you'd be feeling concerned, and we probably should be. Our guest today believes this platform can help address these concerns, and we'll dive into that in a bit. Hello, and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success Podcast, brought to you by Spratworth.com. I'm Vinay Koshi, and our guest today is Srikrishna Swaminathan. Srikrishna, you bring over 8+ years of experience in digital marketing, analytics, ad networks, and mobile UA and monetization. You've served on the leadership team at InMobi for well over 6 years, and I believe joined Global Media as a strategic advisor for India and the APAC region. You are the co-founder and CEO of Factors.ai, which I believe is a B2B marketing analytics and attribution platform. You help B2B marketing and growth teams measure, analyze, and optimize the impact of marketing activities on revenue, leading to higher pipeline revenue and low wastage of marketing dollars. You obviously had quite a journey to date, very well accomplished. So I'm curious, Srikrishna, was there a pivotal moment in your journey that led you down this path of creating Factors.ai? If so, what was the problem that you were trying to solve initially? And is it still the same problem?
I think it was more our own experiences. Startup ideas come from the problems people face, both in their existing companies or in the products they use, and then it comes. So that was one of those moments which happened. When we were at InMobi, we started growing much earlier before the Android era started. So they started from 2010, 2011 itself, they started growing. And in that time, we had very solid product analytics tools coming up. So the likes of Amplitude, Heap Analytics, etc., and Mixpanel as well, which were helping us do product analytics. And we went to do product analytics to see conversion rate optimization, how are the funnels dropping off, etc. We had excellent tools. But the same set of tools, when we were looking at from the marketing perspective, was not there. A very clear end-to-end data platform which can stitch together the user journey right from the channel data or the website or the app data all the way up to the CRM data, and ability to slice and dice the data, filter out or break down the user properties or the web properties, etc., to see like, okay, what is the user doing, where is the user dropping off, which segments are performing better, which segments are not performing well, etc., was not available. And this led to us to thinking like, why is such a problem not available for marketers in general? And then we started focusing on the sub-segment, which is B2B marketers, because one of my other co-founders came from Freshworks. And that's the journey where like we were as engineers, we were data driven, and we were seeing the problem firsthand when we were looking and working with marketers who were spending across multiple channels, including Snapchat, Apple search ads, DSP exchanges, etc., to identify how their marketing ROI worked. But we saw one part of the problem and then applied it to a pretty vertical industry, which is B2B SaaS, etc. And that's how the startup idea for us came about. And as you mentioned, it's like a lot of people don't use marketing analytics. Almost more than 50% of users don't have a proper marketing analytics solution. But in B2B, the significance becomes a little different as well, because it's a long customer journey, multiple stakeholder customer journey. And most importantly, the time when you invest on marketing activities to the time actually you get some ROI out of it or revenue out of it can be either weeks or months or even quarters. So how you actually identify these are the activities which I invest on and this is the ROI of these investments, there wasn't any tool available in the market to stitch it together end to end. And that became a kind of a moment of reckoning for us to know that, okay, this is something which is exciting for us to jump in, because we saw that kind of an Android era kind of movement happening in B2B SaaS as well. The number of B2B SaaS companies which got established and started growing from 2018, 2019 to now is almost 5x what it would have happened in the previous era, which is similar to what happened in the mobile app Android era as well, where then suddenly there were a lot of mobile apps and mobile apps became ubiquitous. The same thing is happening in the B2B SaaS space as well. And given there is tremendous growth. And anywhere where there is growth, there is a lot of marketing activities. Anywhere there is a lot of marketing activities, there's also questions about ROI, what you're doing, what you're not doing, where is the way to actually get the hockey stick growth, etc. That really comes into play. And that's where a product like the idea of Factors.ai also germinated. And we started then deep diving into sub-use cases within that and building the product around that.
Oh, brilliant. And sure, having a marketing attribution tool or analytics tool is a problem, but would you also say that even with those companies that do use some sort of tool, the issue also boils down to people being uncomfortable with data and what to do with the various forms of data and metrics that they do have access to in order to take data-driven, actionable decisions?
Data-enabled or data-driven decisions is something everyone would want to do. It's not something like people are not kind of averse to, oh, you show me data, oh, I wouldn't look at data, I'm going by my gut or something. So every gut feeling or every muscle memory is driven by some form of the data which is there. But the way how they consume data differs by industry. For example, how a DevOps engineer would consume data and how the detail in which he would go in, while how a data scientist would do in one end of the spectrum, to something like product analysts who are far more data driven in terms of running reports themselves, versus marketers who want to look at data and who want to use the data, but it should be in a consumable way so that they actually see that excitement for them to come and repeatedly use that. And that the product experience and the usability experience is where the differentiation comes. So you can't build the same amplitude for a marketer. And because for the marketer, it would be something like alarming for him. Okay, so many reports or so many capabilities, I'm not able to do this thing. More templates or easy to do templates, and also ability to visualize the buyer journey immediately so that he can see immediate value of the product. And then he can deep dive into it so that he gets into the path of using data which is more comfortable for him, rather than something like where like you scare him with the way that the product itself looks. So that is the key thing. It's in a sense, if you are in college, if you're more of a commerce accountant, you would still like maths and you are this thing, but I'm not looking at calculus level math. I'm looking at basic maths there and how to manipulate numbers around that and then build around it. That's how a marketer also approaches any data-driven product as well, or any product which helps them use data to make decisions as well. And also the use cases also differ in terms of marketers are more oriented towards action rather than just analysis. As a product guy, I can be used to just analyze because it's an overall strategy, because I can't just change anything in the product within the first 2 weeks itself. I would rather wait for seeing the data over a period of time, see trends, and then change it over a period of the next quarter, product plan, the PMF, and the other plans which change. But on the marketer, any data which comes in, he wants to change within the next 2 weeks. Why? Because like he can experiment. He wants to do a more A/B testing, which means whatever the data or the insights which he wants to feed back into the loop in terms of actions. That is, I spend on certain channels, I see certain activities and certain signups increasing in this part or in this category, this setup, etc. Then as soon as I see that, now I know that this is working, this is not working. I want to shut it down or do a A/B test immediately, which is basically means like I take this segment of users, push it back into LinkedIn again to do a retargeting campaign and then see how the feedback loop works. And if I can see the entire buyer journey across these feedback loops, something like a control system, then it's a lot more exciting for the marketer to actually start using the product and get the output. So it is data driven, just that how it manifests into usage, how it manifests into actioning, how it manifests into daily workflow is different by categories of how a marketer would do it versus this thing. So it's not aversion to data or any dashboards or any analytics tooling. It's more ability to have it consumable in my normal workflow.
Ensuring that the output is enough in a simplified format to allow whoever the user is to be able to get quick wins, so to speak, and perhaps a little bit of insight for longer term or medium term action is the key to allowing people to make use of platforms and tools. Would you also say that with traditional marketing analytics solutions, one of the problems is that there are multiple stakeholders involved in the whole decision-making process, and of course the journey is non-linear, which makes it difficult to predict any marketing-driven interactions? If so, how would you recommend people allow for that and solve for that issue?
I think since B2B has unique problems, or any SaaS company, because as you mentioned, it's multiple stakeholders in any company. Nobody is going to buy a $10,000 ACV product or a $25,000 ACV product as a single one person choosing it. It will be multiple stakeholders. Especially given this environment, there'll be someone from finance team, there'll be an exec sponsor, there'll be an analyst, and there'll be multiple people within the operating team itself deciding on whether how to use the product and all of this. So it's not like a single person buyer journey, how it would happen in a D2C system, where if I want to buy a particular dress or if I want to buy a food item or something, I just go click on the app button and move ahead and other. So it's a multi-touch journey and multi-stakeholder journey, which is there. The key here is, or the problem here is, most of the analytics tools are built for the D2C era, which is a much larger market. And let's say there is e-commerce, there is app, and there is gaming, and there are so many other aspects which is there. And all the D2C or any B2C use cases are all single user journeys, which are there. And analytics tools are built for it, whether you look at Amplitude or a mixed panel, or even the likes of, let's say, Google Analytics, which is traditional, just web analytics itself, is built for the B2C system. That is user, what sessions they do and how they do. So they don't even have the capability to see there are 5 users, but all of them, and they have individual journeys. Someone is looking at the blog, someone is looking at the pricing page, someone is looking at the case study, but they all belong to a certain domain. And they are all part of the decision making, because they also reply to email IDs. They would have some calls scheduled. They also look at a particular LinkedIn ad, etc. How this multi-touch, multi-channel journey gets mapped out is something there is no tool which is available to look at. The second aspect is, given that people would always run down to something which is more easy and accessible to use, the primary data point which is there is something like a Google Analytics, which is there. But the problem with Google Analytics in the last couple of years is like the cookie issue, which is third-party cookies are getting degraded. Browsers block third-party cookies. There are ad blockers which block third-party cookies. Companies are very uncomfortable with using third-party cookies, because Google Analytics as a tool with third-party cookies exists to help the Google ad monetization system. And since you get blocked in multiple places, the amount of data you capture is only 70% of your website visitor data, compared to being a first-party cookie where you can do the formful data capture and also get around ad blockers and track almost close to 95 to 99% of your website data, and also do the same thing at an account level instead of the user level. So the problem is, like, the existing solutions are built for B2C, built for more ad monetization, and with cookies which gets blocked, which is okay in B2C, because in B2C, you're looking at the same trends where, like, whether you do it with 1,000 users or you do it with 700 users, still you would be able to figure out the same trends. In B2B, where there are multiple users involved and there is a proper journey, if you lose almost 30% of your user data itself, then it's very difficult for you to make sense of, like, where did the data come? Because that 30% might be contributing to 85% of your revenue, which is there. That gets missed out. And also the multi-stakeholder journey within a single account level journey versus a user level journey, that also becomes a difficulty, which the standard analytics tools and others don't contribute. And that's where is the space or the gap or the significant market gap, which we see from a technology product angle itself, which is there. Then on top of that comes the data which comes in for B2B. For example, in B2C, until the user signs up, you don't need to know who the user is. In B2B, with reverse IP technology, you can know which account is coming and showing interest. I wouldn't know XYZ from, let's say, Atlassian is coming and visiting my product. But I would know so many people from Atlassian, or 5 people from Atlassian from this particular city in Sydney, and is coming and taking interest in my pricing page, is coming and taking interest in my case study page. And now I know, with my buyer persona, which is either can be the marketing operations team, or can be the revenue operations team, or can be the finance team, I know these are the people who are there in Sydney office of Atlassian. This is there. And then I can create either a LinkedIn campaign to them, or I can create a cold outbound email campaign to them, and then bring them back into the buying journey, back into the system, and get them in. Once they come into the funnel, then they become part of my buying process. They become part of my pipeline, which is there. This is some capability which is unique in the B2B SaaS space, which is not available for you with any traditional or earlier tools which are built for B2C or B2C kind of environment, which is there. That's where there is a significant, what you would call as a gap, and also an opportunity which gets generated in the analytics segment.
And what about with these longer sales cycles? Oftentimes there are occasions where conversations need to go offline, so to speak, whether it be an in-person presentation or perhaps the documents are sent through via email, etc. Is there the possibility of actually capturing data for those moments in the whole buyer's journey?
Yes, that's a CRM is there. So whether you use a HubSpot or a Salesforce, you have the activity object in the CRM, where like after any call, the sales team always updates saying that, okay, this was a call which was happening. There was an in-person meeting and these were the people. These are the call notes from these meetings. These were the buyer stakeholders who are present in the meeting, and these were the stakeholders from our side who are present at the meeting. Or it can be even an offline event, something like a closed room dinner, or it can be I sponsor SaaStr or something like that, and we met people there. All this data is available from the CRM. So linking the website activity data to your marketing automation and then your CRM data, you would be able to see the influence and correlation of all these activities as well. That is like in your buyer journey itself, our product, you'd be able to map like X, this company came, visited the website, looked at the particular blog. Then there was an interaction where there was a face-to-face interaction which had happened where these members were there. And this person came back and then signed up as well. And then a couple of others came and looked at the pricing page or some other page on this particular date itself. So you'll be able to map that entire journey across all these activities as well, which is kind of not possible just with a simple web analytics solution because you don't have the CRM data into it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really about plugging in all the different
sources of data.
Yes, to create the one source of truth, which I guess Factors.ai is aiming to be. Would that be correct?
Yeah. Yes, I would also admit that it's not that it's never comprehensive. There'll always be some interaction which would not be able to cover something like, let's say, an interaction in a Slack community group. Or if there is an interaction in a WhatsApp and other thing, how does it get back into the Salesforce and other thing? But to the extent and wherever it's possible, from let's say conversational intelligence tools to the LinkedIn or any other ad channel activities, to all the way up to your email interactions, to your CRM interactions, and even gifting, all these activities, we take efforts to bring in all the data in a systemized manner and tie the whole data through. So the way our data is structured is there's an account. Under an account, there are users or the stakeholders. Each user has a user properties, whether like which city they're coming from, what are the user properties, which kind of systems they use. And they do events on the events, and each event has event properties. So events can be something like blogs, can be case studies, can be attending a webinar, can be attending an event, etc. And then what are the interactions within that and what are the nodes within that? And you can see the entire path of the same user across a period of time. So it's a time series data, which helps us to actually then find which paths are making sense, which paths are not making sense. For example, you do a closed room dinner and you also do a gifting, and plus you also do a LinkedIn activity in the ad channel, the chance of conversion becomes, let's say, 5 to 10% better than without doing this activity. How incrementality of different sets of activities plays on together. So you can then actually then see that which parts or which set of activities have the highest ROI. So if you want to say that now my current budget is $100, I want to bring this down to $75, which are the $25 which I'm actually going to cut? Rather than culling, just generally saying that taking the biggest group or something, or taking a gut feel call saying that I'll just dump all LinkedIn activities or I'll dump just all event activities. Rather see which are the activities which actually have the highest alpha or the incrementality which you would get from the system.
When you say incrementality, are you referring to things like some sort of reciprocal messaging contact from a customer?
Incrementality is the way where, like, let's say you have this, you are running Google and you are running, let's say, some other set of email activities. And just with Google ads and email activities, you get, let's say, a pipeline generation of $50,000 on a monthly basis. But when you add a LinkedIn retargeting activity on top of this, pipeline generation moves from $50,000 to $65,000. So this LinkedIn retargeting activity, the amount of money you're spending on it, let's say, is $3,000 or $5,000, but it generates pipeline, which is of additional $15,000. So now when you are looking at your marketing activities, for Google, you are spending, let's say, $25,000. For LinkedIn, you are spending, let's say, $3,000. If you're wanting to reduce your marketing budget from $28,000 to $20,000, where do you reduce? Do you want to cut this $3,000, which gives an additional incremental $15,000? Or do you want to reduce it somewhere else so that, or some other keyword activities and other thing, or even reduce certain geographies which you wouldn't get high pipeline? For example, geographies, let's say like Southeast Asia or APAC or Europe might not give the highest pipeline numbers compared to, let's say, North America or ANZ or something. So how do you plan this out to say that, okay, now I'll remove this set of activities rather than remove the most easiest activity which I want to remove? Because that is where the data and the incremental functions also and the analytics actually helps you to see the next set path. Otherwise, it's more like throwing the baby with the bathwater. So it's like you want to make sure you don't cut your pipeline while you are reducing your budgets. That's on the optimization, but it all tends towards what is the amount of revenue you can create with the given resources which you have, and how much maximum efficient or maximum revenue you can generate. Because whether the economy is in a recession or it's in a growth mode or something, every time the mode is like, how do I generate more revenue? Because as you have the pipeline flowing in and identify you are able to create pipeline in the most efficient form, people are willing to invest money. Just that they want to know where they're investing money, whether it's actually working out. And the problem is even further in B2B, because whatever you do in Q1 activity, let's say you are on Q2 and you are getting pipeline in April or you're getting pipeline in May, this pipeline would actually have been generated by marketing activities in February or even earlier. So how do you justify these activities around this over a period of time so that the management is a lot more patient? Because it's like the general view on trend about looking at data is on a quarter to quarter or week to week or a month to month basis. These activities happen across multiple quarters. So how do you kind of hold, or it's like a more like an investing game saying, okay, you be patient, you wait so that you'll get the actual result rather than see it. And this is the data to back you up to say that, okay, you will get this kind of a result. And this is the way the activities are at least done in a conscious way rather than unconscious kind of a general gut feel of where you spray and pray, hope that things work.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. On a personal note, you've had quite a journey to date. I'd be curious as to what you would say is your personal area of strength.
I think I've been learning and I've been consistently learning. One thing is making connections, ability to work across multiple people, identify opportunities through people connections, and then bringing them together and make it work. So I got lucky through even my founding team. So I have we are a 3-member founding team. My one co-founder, Arvind, who's the CTO, was my college classmate. And I had been in touch with him. And when he wanted to come back to Bangalore from Chennai, from quitting his Freshworks job, we connected. And then he had this idea around starting up again. That's one way how I got connected. The other connection is my other co-founder, Praveen. Both of us worked at InMobi together. And though he was on the product side and I was on the business side, we connected over a period of time within InMobi, and we wanted to start up as well. And I was able to bring these couple of channels together, and including quite a few of our early employees happened through my connections. And over a period of time, totally unrelated, but people who I had connected or spoken to or built a relationship over a period of time became partners in crime for me. So that's something which having that, maybe that ability to sacrifice time to generally build relationships without knowing like what's the kind of ROI over the longer run really helped me over a period of time. That's to actually get my co-founder team, and also, which is one of the most exceptional teams which I could have put together, and building this company. That's something which I'm fortunate enough. The second thing which I do bring through is my overall experience has predominantly been on sales or on the front end customer facing side. So right from my FMCG sales era to where I used to meet distributors and salespeople, rural India, to actually sell consumer goods products, to my banking time where like it's M&A, reaching out to either founders and CEOs at mid-market companies and startups to actually raise funds, etc., to all the way up to my InMobi era as well, where I had built the whole affiliate and DSP business at InMobi as well. So this was predominantly in the sales side. Having the sales angle gives you a direct exposure to revenue and also the exposure to opportunities in terms of building revenue, which is there, which feeds back into building the right set of products and also building the right set of partnerships for you to build out. So sales is another thing which, and this is like as a simple thing, it's like anything you have to do for 10 years for you to be good at, or at least identify patterns for you to build on, both in terms of hiring the right people, both in terms of best practices which you yourself follow to so that you take up. So those are the two things which I see as my significant or fortunate superpowers for the lack of better word.
Okay. Yep.
So it's from building relationships and being on sales side is what has helped me through my both corporate journey and also into my startup journey.
And in that area of strength, personal areas of strength, what would you say is something that businesses don't know but should?
It comes across as, while we are completely data-driven and focused on how numbers work and this thing, at the end of the day, it's about people coming together. And very early in your startup journey, businesses gently start building without actually talking to people outside the line. And on the other hand, if you reverse it, where like you don't build anything, just have open conversations. At best, maybe even have Canva dashboards to say that, okay, this is what I'm planning to do. These are the kind of things. And talking to the end customers or the end people who have the pain to say that what are the exact kind of use cases which they are coming back into, identify the pain, and also finding areas where they would be willing to pay you before you even start working on it. This is something I have gone through this journey where like it's very easy to start building because you have a great, amazing team and you also have an idea which you feel very passionate about and other thing. Directionally, you'll be right. But the sub parts of it in terms of what are the nuances, what are the sub areas in which where you want to build, which are the customers to ignore, which are the customers where you have to double down. That realization can be done much better if you actually take that previous step of spending the first 3 months or 4 months without building anything, but just having conversations. To have those conversations and very open, cold conversations, you need to connect with people, you need to have people, and you need to have friends who can introduce and make the connections happen. For that, you need to be in specific areas. You need to use LinkedIn very well. Or during the COVID era, it's actually one of the things which opened up is like you can connect very remotely rather than being in person in many of the places, which is there. And you have to make that use case happen, which is something which nobody teaches you until you actually firsthand, which is one thing which I think people should know, at least from an entrepreneurship angle, which is there.
Certainly. Absolutely. Just going back to the idea of marketing analytics and making sure that we're able to overcome pipeline challenges with minimum spend. One of the issues, and I'm sure you've heard this, correct me if I'm wrong, is that perhaps, especially with early stage venture entrepreneurs, they're often challenged with matching up a pipeline with obstacles that will stall or prevent closing of a deal in time. How would you separate hype from reality, so to speak, with a tool that enables the surfacing of truth, as it were?
One thing is it's also identifying the right ICPs for you to sell to as well, and businesses as well. If I'm, let's say, I don't even have a product, or I'm still enabling something like finding product market fit into my product and other this thing, investing both on ads in terms of marketing and investing in tooling is not the right thing to do. You can still have a basic CRM or a basic set of web analytics and maybe call recording software like Gong or a kind of a Rafiki or Avoma and other this thing. But beyond that, you are still on a product building stage. You are not in a kind of a GTM phase at all. So I would actively also say, okay, are we the right kind of a product to be it and for you to be? Because the entrepreneurs always keep thinking ahead, oh, I can do this with this kind of a software, and they tend to acquire this thing. That's when, like, from a customer relationship building standpoint or from a basic honesty standpoint, it's like, okay, I think we can take a pause. I think we should come back maybe 3 or maybe 6 months down the line. And then we can reconnect, because that's when the product would be of maximum usage, where you would really see the pain and what you would have to do and other the same. So that's something which we need to do. But as companies grow up in scale, which is where entrepreneurs also, which is where the consulting angle of your sales also comes in, where like you are spending money, you are getting a lot of growth, but the initial phases, you don't care where the growth comes. You just want to see more deals and other this thing. That's where a product like ours start making huge amount of sense. But and that's where entrepreneurs or even founders and CMOs teams, it's okay, is this the problem which we want to solve? Do we need to know where it's coming from rather than just take up the growth and then this thing? That's where they make a mistake, because if you don't find where the growth is coming and what is the buyer journey and which parts are converting very well, you wouldn't have the steady GTM motion, which is where you want to say that I want to push the investment into this set of a GTM motion so that I can get a consistent growth, which is not founder-led sales, which is not just basic random sales which are coming up, or hype-led sales, which just comes over the first 3 months and then tapers off. And that's where a product like ours starts making immediate sense for them. And this is something which you need to educate the prospects and customers as well. Because this is a second problem, because like when they go to raise funds, they wouldn't be able to say, okay, this channel, this set of use cases, this kind of deal life cycle from this is how my pipeline is getting generated in a consistent manner. That's data which they wouldn't be able to present both to their investors or even prospective employees. Because in the current scenario, you're also having employees and everyone asking, do you have a steady pipeline coming in? Which areas are the ones where there is the maximum growth coming in? Which are the channels which are really working for you? Which are the segments which are working for you? Which is, for example, are you identifying employees from 50 to 1,000 employees companies are the ones which work very well for you, or 10 to 50 or 1,000 plus? What is it that is working for you? Whether it's US as a market or India as a market or APAC as a market is working well for you. And each one is a very different sales motion. Each one is a very different kind of ACV motion. Each one is a very different kind of a CAC motion as well. In terms of hiring a salesperson in US versus even spending in US market is very different from trying to do the same thing for APAC as a market. And this is something which the software and tooling can predict. While on the other side, it might be too much of an overload when you are too early in the life cycle or too large in the life cycle as well. So this is the segment which you need to push in as well. And that's the realization which you also get from sales.
What about unreliable forecasting? Because that's often an issue, regardless of size. With a platform like yours, does it help narrow down the uncertainty and unpredictability of forecasting?
Definitely does. One systemic use case which is there is not every B2B buyer buys immediately. So if you have 100 visitors on your website on a daily basis, maybe 3 or maximum 5 people will sign up immediately. Remaining 95 remain anonymous. Identifying who are the 95 visitors which are there, which accounts are they coming in from, what is their website behavior, which of them are in your ICP, what are their firmographics and technographics, etc., is one part, is what our tool provides. So I can say it's like the current sign up flow is like these are the 3 customers which are signed up, but there are 20 other prospects which is there on your website showing high intent, which can be prospective pipeline for you, which you can also reach out and then you can convert. So now you also get an additional set of leads which you can reach out to, so that instead of having 3 demos, you can have 6 demos a day or 9 demos a day. If you are able to get your number of demos into 2x to 3x, the pipeline naturally increases to 50 to 60%. Your revenue down the line in the next 2 to 3 months will increase by 20 to 25%, which is there. And this is the path which you can show with the product and see, without this, what are the kind of use cases which you have, and including these are the marketing investments which I mentioned about earlier as well. Like, what is the incrementality of marketing spends? If you spend $20,000 in Google ad spends, you're going to get $50,000 in pipeline. If you spend $25,000, which is $5,000 for LinkedIn retargeting along with Google ad spends, you are going to get $75,000 in pipeline. This is there, and this kind of a forecast which happens, and you can see the entire feedback loop. But having said that, data prediction and also the funnels, so at the end of the day, the user being realistic also with he knowing his own funnel. And generally, sales teams and also entrepreneurs tend to be over aggressive in terms of projecting what they can do. You wouldn't find anyone not saying that I will do 2x in the next quarter. But this data, both with the board and with the rest of the team, would help them to say that if I want to do 2x, this is what is going to be my investment. And this, given my pipeline, given my average deal cycle, given my ACV, this is what I need to do. But given my resource constraints and given the kind of people which I have, I'm going to invest so much. So I'm going to achieve 1.7x very predictably. 95%, I'm very sure I'll achieve 1.7x. But if some large deal works out, I can actually do 2x, which is there. Right. So this data-driven nature, both in terms of what you measuring your inputs and measuring how your input relate to your outputs, and also measuring prospects in advance, saying that you can go in confidence to your sales team or to your board and say that now I need to add 3 more sales teams, because while I'm having only 3 signups on a daily basis, I'm having 20 other prospects interested in my project. If I have to reach out to the prospects, I need to have that extra sales team. I need to invest this. Now, and if I do that, now I'll be able to increase my, let's say, my MQLs by 2 to 3x. If I'm able to increase my MQLs by 2 to 3x, I'll get the additional 30% growth from there itself, so that I can bridge the gap between 1.7x to 2x with that.
Brilliant. I'm also curious, would you say that while platforms like yours can certainly be used for ABM type scenarios and things of that nature, and while we're very focused on numbers, and that should be the case, is there also something to be said about creating a metric around relationships and not just lead scoring, but relationships and how deep that a particular relationship is with an account or with an individual.
Totally. No. In B2B, it's a no-brainer. That's one of the reasons why we also, very interestingly, in the last couple of months, we have brought in score of account engagement score. That is the number of stakeholders in a particular account you are engaging with. And how does that relate to conversion rates? How does it relate it to in terms of deal cycle times? How does it relate to actual ACV? So for example, if in a particular account, you have 3 to 4 decision makers which are there, and if you are interacting with only 1 or 2 of them, and that can be seen with the whole account journey path, which is very clearly evident, then the alerts go to, okay, these are accounts where like only 2 stakeholders are interacting. These are accounts where there are 5 stakeholders which are interacting. These are accounts where there are like at least something like 4 of them are interacting, but all 4 of them have very individual paths in terms of consuming case studies. These are the accounts where like they have been consistently looking at the pricing page. These are accounts which are consistently looking at security policy, etc. So you also know what are the kind of concerns which the buyer is actually expressing directly, because a person who's really looking at the pricing page and coming back into the discussion, he might need some kind of assurance around what is the price and what is the ROI, etc. A company which is actually looking a lot more into your case studies or your security policy would need a different kind of assurances. You might need to bring in your CTO to show that, okay, this is how cloud data is stored. This is the locations in which it's stored. This is our data policy in terms of SOC type 1, type 2 compliance, etc. So this buyer engagement score, or as you mentioned, relationship engagement score becomes very important in B2B. And measuring that as much as possible, one, from a technical aspect or from a data aspect in terms of how many users the buyer engagement is happening is one on the technical side. The non-technical aspect of how you are actually measuring that comes from your actual CRM notes and your conversational intelligence notes, which is like either an Avoma or a Gong, and others will also give you saying that, okay, these are the kind of vibes which are happening. These are the kind of positive vibes which are there. And similarly, your CRM notes also giving that. Interestingly, some of these data points also are available over API now, which is not available earlier. Now you can actually have a Gong integration, and you can have this thing to say that what are the overall vibe score which is there, what are the kind of triggers which are there, and then you can also have Slack alerts which can go into specific DMs or into channels to say that, okay, this account is actually trending with positive vibes. This account is actually trending with not so positive vibes, where the competitor is getting mentioned in this thing. So the relationship scoring is a very clear art, and there is, even with all the data which you can do, you'll still miss 25 to 30% of it. But the good part now is both with your conversational intelligence software and with account journey intelligence software in terms of buyer engagement scores and other thing, you can actually quantitatively measure that and highlight that in advance, so that it's the feedback loop, which is also matters. So that's the difference in marketing versus also in this thing, like you see the data, but how do you act upon the data? And do you get the data in terms of real-time alerts? Do you get the alerts in the right time so that you can act upon to go back and tell your sales team, like, we are interacting, the data shows we are interacting only with 2 stakeholders in this company. We don't have any, as per CRM records and this thing, we don't have any CXO involved yet. And this is the $25,000 deal, which means it's never going to pass without a CXO or a finance person actually doing this. So this is something which we need to intervene and find a person there. How can I help you to actually get the finance person into the table? Or this is the conversational intelligence software is saying that it's not so great vibe because they're comparing with the competitor and they're saying competitor is better in these aspects, which is there. How do I intervene into the next call where I can bring in a product person into the call so that we can actually generate that kind of assurance and this thing? This can come with the data feedback loops now currently and solve for the relationship engagement score, or the solving for how you can use relationships or data to actually make sure that you get the relationships right and advance the deal pipeline, both in terms of time, in terms of conversion rates, and also in terms of CVs as well.
Very interesting. Are there aspects to this whole idea of providing actionable analytics, marketing analytics and account analytics that you find doesn't get much airtime, doesn't get talked about very much? If so, what would they be?
Across the board, I think one thing which people always miss out is in marketing analytics is like they concentrate a lot on first party data, which is like, I have my website, I have my channels, I have my CRM. So in my website, the conversion rates are 3%. And then eventually, let's say if I get 10 MQLs, from 10 MQLs, I'll get 3 or 4 SQLs. From 3 or 4 SQLs, I'll get 1 or 2 closed ones, which is there, which is the conversion funnel, which is there. What companies tend to miss this. Let's say if I have 3% conversion rate on my website, marketers are more oriented towards how to make the 3% 4%. What they don't think about is like, there are remaining 95% or 96% of visitors which are there, which are coming into your website. Nobody randomly visits a B2B website or even comes and looks at your pricing page or your customer case study. Anyone who's coming and looking at it, of course, leave the carriers page, which is there, is someone who's a prospect who intends to see what this product does and who might have a problem which he thinks your product solves for based on the communication which you have done in the past. So analyzing who are the remaining 95% of the visitors which are there and finding the high intent ICP visitors in this remaining 95% has the ability to actually increase the conversion rates from, instead of having 3 demos to 10 demos, which is there, and which can naturally increase your sales in an immediate form. This is something which a lot of companies miss out. So they have the standard website flow of like users sitting on the website and then coming and looking at the demos. They also have the sales team also doing the same thing, where like they would have, let's say, account book of 200 accounts which they need to reach out for this quarter. They will do cold calling and cold email and cold outbound. Cold email and cold calling outbound, the reply rates would be like barely 1 to 2%. And it's something like you are in a party or you are in a place, you are asked to go and make friends with 100 people. Despite your maximum energy, which is there, it will be super difficult for you to make friends with 100 people. Maximum, you'll be able to smile and say hi and exchange some pleasantry. On the other hand, using this third-party data of the website visitor identification, which accounts are coming into your website, who are the ones which are showing intent, you can say in this party of 100 people, this 20 people are the ones which actually went to school, the same school, or come from the same state at which you come from, and also are in the same age group which you are there, etc., something like that, or the equivalent of it on the ICP side. These are the ones which are your ideal customer profiles with terms of technographics, buyer interest, and looking at your pricing page. If you talk to just this 20 set of people, the chance of conversion of getting your cold call conversions or cold email conversions is almost going to be 3 to 5x, which is there. Then it becomes far better in terms of your conversion rates. But that is simple number. Second is energy management. Any sales is an energy sapping activity.
Yes.
Instead of talking to 100 customers, why don't you talk to 20 who is a high intent so that you can convert 5 of them rather than talking to 100 and converting 3 of them, which is there. And you can have a much better this thing. And this is something which gets consistently missed out both from a sales activity point of view, where like instead of having a general account book and going after everyone, going after a specific set which are in your ICP and ICP which is in market to buy for you by based on interest which they show both on website, intent they show on your website, intent they show for your product, and multiple other intent signals which are there. Same thing with marketing as well. Instead of looking at how to convert 3% into 3.6%, you can look at who are the ones who are remaining, which is there, so that you can retarget them or find multi-channel marketing activities and work closely with sales so that you can increase or double or triple your number of demos, which is there. This is something which gets consistently missed out. And that's something which we do as part of our evangelization as well. Yes, 3% is there, but how do we make it 9%? Talk about.
There's some very interesting insights to think through and act upon. Thank you for that. To wrap things up, Srikrishna, if you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
One thing is like at a fundamental level, like how I can use marketing analytics data and specifically in a B2B context and third-party intent data to first-party intent data, combine them to actually generate immediate pipeline and revenue. That would be one of the first takeaways into what are the parts which are there. Second aspect, which I think I would go about is like understanding nuances around analytics. What a GA would do versus what a simple dashboard would do versus what a kind of end-to-end buyer journey analytics platform can do. So that at least understanding the nuances of the limitations of the current tools is something which is the second takeaway which I would have. Third takeaway is more, I hope I could have spent a little more time also, is if I want to be a kind of entrepreneur or if I this thing, how kind of connections and serendipitous relationships, etc., help in building your founding team. And the founding team is all that matters when you're building the startup. So it's beyond the technology or beyond the market you pick, etc. The team, if you have the right team in place, eventually you'll find the problem and the product and the technology to support and build through what it is.
You said serendipitous relationships. Is there any methodology that you would recommend to creating those relationships, or is it truly serendipitous?
There is a certain, I think it's like when I did it more out of a gut feel, or I found that opportunity and other this thing, but you have to create your luck. While there are some random luck which can happen, something like me winning a lottery. The other thing is you are in places where you create luck where you can get to work with the right set of people and then build around it, or you get the right kind of inspirations. And that's something which you can have a path to. So early in my career, I moved out of a very large FMCG corporate, which is like a $10 billion plus company in India, very stable job. Over a period of time, I know like I will be in a VP CXO level over a period of 15, 20 years, settled job and other thing, to move into a boutique investment bank, which is that. Because I felt that if I have to be on the path to entrepreneurship down the line, I want to be working with entrepreneurs in the first, and also working with investors on the other side, seeing what both sides think and how they do. And seeing a lot of entrepreneurs at the young age and seeing how they think and how they looking at the market, including how the investors are looking, was inspiring and pushing me towards at least saying that, okay, if I have to start up, these are the things, or these are the kind of qualities I have to develop over a period of time, or these are the kind of resources I have to develop over a period of time. The second thing also which happened was, while I was working in the bank, I still thought like I was in the middle. I want to be in a much younger company, which is another startup. And if I want to build on the tech space, it should be on the tech kind of a startup space, and work with other smart people so that some ideas will come and I'll also be able to make friends and then start building a company over it. That's why I jumped into InMobi. So these were all very conscious calls in terms of hoping to create myself in luck, in terms of finding the right set of people to back me in different paths, or finding co-founders, or finding a team or a set of people who I can work with eventually to start building the startup. Because there are several aspects where like you can just walk in or startup accelerators, make friends with 3 months, over 3 months, and then build a company with them and make it another thing. On the other hand, I chose more like work with people over a period of 5 years or 7 years or 10 years. Make sure that you find the right founding team and also the right set of team, and create yourself in opportunities where, one, working in a tech company like InMobi got exposed to me both from a tech side, analytics perspective, data-driven marketing, and also other tools like Amplitude, which is there, and also helped me find a co-founder as well over a period of time. We were friends, both of us were working together for 7 years, and before we actually stepped up to this thing. So that really helps in building the right startup culture and building the right kind of environment for you to build the success for the long run, because nothing is an overnight success. And there are pre-work which you need to do to both right from starting up and also post-work once you start up, to stay together and build together over the period of 3 to 5 years to actually succeed in the longer run. So I was able to create luck by being in this kind of right set of places. The same thing would also apply to anyone else who's looking to start up as well. So if you want to really start up in the future, try to be more in other startups, work in other startups, so that one, you understand both, you get to see a live view of what all mistakes they are doing. You get to work with other spirited and high energy individuals also, so that you can find your co-founders. And you can also get to learn from, in terms of other technologies which are seeing opportunities based on, let's say, a mid-level startup is what kind of problems they are solving for. You can create the next problem idea and other things as well. So that's one part of the thing. Similarly, going to the right schools or being in the right environment. Being in Bangalore helped me a great deal compared to what I would have had, let's say, staying back in Calcutta or some other city which was there in India, because this is more of a startup hub which was there. So you tend to make some sacrifices, or you would say like certain decisions which would eventually have a multiplier effect in terms of creating luck for you.
Thanks for that. And for listeners who are curious, Srikrishna, where would you recommend that they head to in order to learn more or to connect with you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. Anything, just ping me up on LinkedIn. That's just there. And that's the best way.
Okay, not a problem. And we'll include the link to Factors.ai in the show notes. Srikrishna, this has been terrific. Thank you so much for doing this.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Vinay, for giving me this opportunity to talk. And it was a very interesting conversation. I also found myself talking on things which I wouldn't have generally opened up on. And thanks a lot for making that happen.